Hey, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Hey, this is Gregory Wiles coming live to you from Houston, Texas with this inspirational morning talk for first-time listeners. I'm on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8:45 a.m. Central Time. That's our time here in Texas, and you can calculate which time zone you're in. But yes, our weather, we're a little cold, still in, I guess, the late 40s here, just creeping up to about 70 today. So we got some nice cool weather here. Nothing too crazy, but give us a chance. All the ladies glad for the opportunity to wear their boots. So, that's a big thing for them when we get this cool weather. They can put on their boots and the little winter clothes that we don't get to wear often. But today is one of those days to get a little excuse to do that. All right. But I got a little story I want to look at here in Luke. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he was sharing his experience with me, how his niece had died, and his niece was one of the, a great help to her mother, which is his sister, and she died suddenly, and we were just talking about it, and then I come across the story last night I was reading in Matthew, and this story stood out to me, and I decided to go and do some research in it, and it's along the same line. And let's see how Jesus handled it. This got a lot of nuggets in it. Lots of time we read these stories, and I read these stories, you go through the Bible, you read it 1,000 times, and different stuff would stick out to you. Every time you read it, something else would stand out. What just depends on your journey, your faith journey at the time, whatever God want to reveal to you. He can reveal to you. So this story, I decided to do some little more research and drill down on it, and we'll talk about it, right? This is in Luke 7:11 through 17. This is when Jesus raised a widow's son. I think out of those three Gospels, I could only remember hear it in Luke. I didn't hear Matthew nor Mark talk about this particular one. So Luke had mentioned this one here, right? So, so let's read from 11 through 17. So soon after, Jesus went with his disciples to the village of Nain. So this after we're talking about soon after, because before this, if you remember the story in about Luke 7:1 through 10, when the fate of the centurion guy, the centurion meaning a military commander who's in charge of 100 men, right? Remember when his servant was sick, and he sent his men to ask Jesus if he could come and heal his servant. And when Jesus was on his way close to his house, he sent the men and said, "Man, Jesus, I'm not even worthy for you to come into my house. I'm a ruler. If I know if you only say the word, my servant would be healed. If you are powerful, you just got to say the word, because I'm not worthy," because he was not a Jew. So he's saying, "I don't deserve for you to come into my house. You just got to say the word, and my servant's going to be healed." And Jesus said, "Well, man, your faith had healed you. Your faith, because of your faith, your servant is healed," right? So it's after that, Jesus went on, him and his disciples went on. So soon after, Jesus with his disciples to the village of Nain, a large crowd followed him. So Jesus got this big crowd behind him, and walking behind him is 12 plus a whole lot of people. A funeral procession was coming out as he approached the village gate. So as he going, and they have his disciples having a good time, they see this funeral procession, right? This funeral procession coming out as they approach this village gate. So the two crowds clash, one coming out, one, I guess, going in. Jesus and his crew having fun, going in, and this funeral procession with people mourning coming out to the gate. So the young man who had died was a widow's only son. Lots of time we see these things here and we just bypass it and go. It's a reason they point out who the man who had died was. He was a widow's only son. You'd say, "Gregory, what I mean? I mean, there's a woman and his son died." No. There's a big meaning behind that. Let me read that and explain. The young man who had died was a widow's only son, and a large crowd from the village was with her. So you remember why this is so significant. This is a widow's only son. Back in those days, the women, they used to work, right? Depend on the husband. So if she's a widow, I mean, she already lost her husband. Right? And this is her only son. So when the husband died, now they depend on the sons. And this was her only son. So not only that she suffered great loss of her husband already, she now lose her only son. So who's going to provide for her now? Who's going to provide for her? This would force her into begging now, right? This would force her into begging. That's why they put that in there. The young man that died was the widow's only son. So this large crowd was behind her mourning, right? Let's go on. When the Lord saw her, his heart overflowed with compassion. His heart overflowed with compassion. He said, don't cry. Don't cry, he said. Just imagine. You see this widow, number one, her only son died, and then you're going to tell her not to cry? Not to cry? Just imagine people, well, this man is a madman. This woman. I went and did some research that said back in those days the Jews used to pay people to mourn, come and cry and, mourn with them. Just like when we got a funeral, we got a wake and stuff like that. You provide food, people would come, but actually could pay them to come and mourn with them and stuff. So it's not no real sympathy people give. You're just doing that, when you're done, you're gone on, but their business to get the little money. So, but Jesus said, don't cry. He had compassion. Compassion, right? He said, don't cry. Then he walked over to the coffin and touched it. This here is a lot of kind of protocols he breaking. Number one, he telling this woman when you're mourning, the right thing to do when you're mourning is to cry. He telling her not to cry. Then he walked over and touched, because back in those days, those rabbis and stuff wasn't allowed to be close to the dead and touching the dead because it make them unclean. And this is the New Testament, but that was still the customs that a lot of them used to go on with, right? He walked over and he then he walked over to the coffin and touched it, and the bearer stopped. Young man, he said, I tell you, get up. Then the dead boy sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother, right? So let's go this over again. Let's just set the stage. Jesus and his disciples coming through to meet this crowd mourning. This young man had died. It was a widow's only son, this woman's only son. Jesus had compassion. He told the woman not to cry. Then he walked over and touched the coffin. The bearer stopped, and this man, and Jesus told the guy, get up and come back to life. You just imagine them people. Number one, this man is a lunatic, right? This man telling this woman not to cry. Then he going over and defiling himself. He got to be some rabbi or some teacher, the way we dress and people follow him and all. Then he going over and touching this coffin. And then he going to talk to the dead, telling the dead to get up. This not. But when they saw this now, great fear swept the crowd. Is verse 16. It said, great fear swept the crowd, and they praised God, saying, a mighty prophet is risen among us. Anyhow, so we got the story, we set the stage. So why did you think Jesus had compassion on this woman? And we want to get some things that we could draw to our lives here, right? Jesus is giving us an example in this story here. Number one, compassion. When you look at the word compassion and empathy, it's kind of close. Empathy is our feeling of awareness towards other people's emotions and attempt to understand how they feel, right? They say you got to empathize, you got empathy. You put yourself in their situation, and you try to imagine yourself in their situation so you could empathize with them, you could, understand what they're going through. But compassion is a little different. Compassion is the same but a little different. See, compassion now, you understand and you put yourself in their shoes, but it's caused you to action now. Compassion is the emotional response to empathy or sympathy and creates a desire to help. So compassion, take it a step further, and you want to help. You want to help, right? You want to help. So Jesus seeing this woman's situation and say, you know what? This woman here is a widow, her only son. Her economic situation ain't gonna look good. Stephen Thatcher, good morning. Tracy Hamer, good morning. Leticia Phillips, good morning. Jillian, good morning. So Jesus done see this need and said, there's a great need right here. This woman lost her husband. She lost her son. Not only she suffer those two great losses, now she can be forced to beg no one to help her, to take care of her. So he recognized her right away. And that's why he had compassion. And he did something about it and bring her son back to life, right? So she don't have to struggle. right? So one takeaway from this, I want us to take away from this story here. Unlike the other story that said he was just coming from, the faith of the centurion, where he was just coming from, the centurion had the faith, and he asked Jesus for this help. He asked for Jesus to come and heal his servant. But in this case, this woman, she didn't even look like she knew who Jesus was. It didn't even say she knew who Jesus was. She didn't go and run at his feet. Oh, Jesus is here. Let me ask Jesus to heal my son. She didn't even do that. Like, she didn't even know her. She was just wrapped up in her grief. But she didn't ask for this help. Jesus just saw the need, and he automatically did something about it. Right? She didn't ask for the help in this case. And that's why I got them two-story. You got to look in deep. She didn't ask for the help. He saw the need, and he don't know this is a need. I'm not waiting for this woman to ask. I know what she can be going through after everybody got home and the finished mourning. I knew what she can be going through. I know that. So he went right out and he had compassion. He bring her child back to life. So what he did, he helped her with her economic situation, her breadwinner, her just like giving her back her job there, just giving her, her livelihood back to her by raising her son. So I'm saying one of the takeaways I want us to take away from this is whenever we see a need, guys, whenever we see a need and God put it on our heart, we go and we do something about it. Don't wait for the person to ask. You see a need, Jesus is telling us, don't wait for them to ask. You go out and you do something about it. Because unlike now, this is actually Jesus walking back in those days there. The physical man was on this earth now. But if he wants to help the widow now, he's now walking down here. We are representing him. So he can put it on our hearts to help that widow now. That person who's suffering, that person who's struggling, he can put it on our hearts to help them, because that's how he gonna help them, right? So this is one takeaway. Do not wait for people to ask. If you recognize there's a need, just like Jesus saw this need. I know the situation. This woman, husband died. Her son now dead. This is the only son she had. This woman gonna struggle. She can got resort to begging. Instead of she do that, I can step in and I can help her. I can give her livelihood back, right? So if you see a need, he's saying, don't wait for people to ask you. You recognize this need. I put it in your heart. I show you this need. For some reason, this person's situation come to you. You didn't even ask him, but for somehow it come across your path and you get a wind of what's going on. He's saying, don't wait. Take my example and you're going to help, right? And the next thing, if you're in a situation and you like the widow, know that Jesus, God, is the one who could turn your sorrow into joy, just like we did for this woman here, right? He turned her sorrow. She was mourning when he met her. And when he left her, she was joy. She was crying, but her tears now was tears of joy instead of tears of sorrow. So know that is the person who can be compassionate with you, and not just empathize with you, but be compassionate and gonna do something about your situation. So that's the next takeaway. If you are the widow, you're the one in the need. No, Jesus, even if he's not going to forsake you, he's always with you, and he's going to help. You just got to recognize that, turn, and you could either do like the centurion and ask, but you got to have the faith and the hope that he's the one who could turn your sorrow into joy. When everybody left and gone home from the funeral procession and like in the USA, they call it the repast. When the repast is done, and everybody gone home, and you left by yourself, just know he's the one. He's the one who could turn the situation around. The joy, the sorrow into joy, right? That's the next takeaway there. Because everybody else, it didn't say nobody else did nothing. Everybody was just going along with the funeral, and the people who was paid to mourn with the mourn, and they gone, and then, what she left with the next day. But Jesus said, no, I stepping in here. And he can always want to step in on our behalf, guys. Even if we didn't ask him sometimes. Even if we didn't ask him, he can step in. But how he going to step in and help, guys, is through us. He gonna step in and help and through us. That's why if you put it in somebody, put it on your heart to help someone, you go right ahead and help them. Don't even wait for them to ask. You go right ahead and you help them. Because just like this widow here, she didn't ask. Well, you went out and you helped her. Right? So let's take that takeaway there. Those two takeaway from this story, right? So, okay, I ain't gonna go on too long and let this soak in. But you look, I challenge you this week moving forward. See a need and take this what he do here. You recognize the need and you go out and do something about it. You help in some way, shape, or form that person who is in the need. All right? All right, guys. I'm going to leave it there, guys, but let's be compassionate. We can empathize with people, which is good, but let's take it a step forward, and like Jesus, have compassion and do something about it and help each other out. All right? All right, guys. Have a great Wednesday. We'll talk again on Friday. Okay, bye.